Update 3. At my daughter's birthday party, my grandson came to me and said, "Grandpa, you have to leave now." I was surprised and asked why. Then he said, "Just go now. You will understand later." I trusted him and left. What happened next was rather unbelievable. I stayed up late drafting a letter to my attorney. I wanted everything revised immediately. Elise and Marcus were to be removed from the estate completely. My trust would be transferred to a fund for Ethan with Julia as secondary trustee. No loopholes, no forgiveness written in legalese, just hard, clean lines. The next morning, I took Ethan fishing. We didn't catch a thing, but as we sat on the bank of the lake, lines dangling into still water, he looked up at me and asked, "Do you still love her?" I didn't answer right away. "I don't know," I said finally. "But I know I can't forget what she did." He nodded. "I think that's okay." And somehow hearing it from him made it feel true. The morning I saw Elise in handcuffs, something in me cracked, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't the kind of pain that leaves you gasping or bent double with grief. No, it was quieter than that, numb, detached, like watching a home video on mute, recognizable faces, familiar movements, but all the warmth sucked out. They arrested her at the courthouse right after her bail hearing. Marcus was denied outright. His prior financial fraud charges from years ago had resurfaced, but Elise, at least for a moment, had tried to secure bond. She didn't get it. I watched it unfold from the gallery. I hadn't intended to be there. I'd come for the paperwork, custody filings for Ethan, trust modifications, things that felt tedious and transactional next to the bomb that had gone off in our lives. But then I saw the media crowd forming in the hallway, reporters huddled like vultures, and I knew. I walked past them, ignoring the flashes and murmurs, and slipped into the back row just as the judge read out the charges again. "Elise Harove, you were charged with conspiracy to commit murder and second-degree murder in the death of Jeffrey Turner." She didn't look back at me, not once. Her face was stoic, almost bored. She wore a beige suit and the same lipstick shade Helen used to wear for PTA meetings. It made me sick, like she was still pretending, clinging to some idea of respectability. Even as the courtroom closed in on her, I saw Marcus, too, shackled, slouching in his seat like this was a traffic violation, not the implosion of a family. He leaned toward her once, whispered something that made her smirk. That image, her smiling while I sat with the ghost of my future beside me, burned into me like acid. After the hearing, they led them through the hallway in cuffs. The crowd pressed in, cameras flashing. Elise caught sight of me. Then our eyes locked for less than a second, but I saw it, something flickering beneath the mask. Not remorse, not fear, resentment. She hated me. She hated that I was still alive. Later that afternoon, back at home, I found Ethan in the backyard with Julia planting tomatoes in one of Helen's old garden beds. His shirt was dirty, knee-stained, but his hands were steady as he pressed each seed into place. He looked up when I approached, offering a faint smile. "How'd it go?" he asked. I crouched beside him, feeling the earth cool beneath my fingers. "She's not coming home." He nodded, no tears, just a slow, exhaled breath. "Okay." Julia wiped her hands on a towel and stood. "I'll give you two a moment," she said quietly, disappearing inside. I sat with him for a while. The silence between us felt heavier than anything the court had said. Finally, he asked, "Did she ever love me?" The question cut sharper than anything Elise had done. "Of course she did," I said slowly. "But love doesn't always come out the right way. Sometimes people bury it under fear or greed or whatever pain they never learned to name." He looked at me. "Do you still love her?" I paused. "I don't know. Maybe I always will. But love doesn't mean trust. And trust, that's gone." He nodded, eyes glazed with something older than 12 years. "Okay." That night, everything came crashing down in the most unexpected way, through a voicemail. One of Elise's friends, a woman named Rachel, who'd known her since high school, left a message on my landline. "I know you hate her right now, but Elise wasn't always like this. After Helen died, she said she felt like she was fading, like she didn't exist to you anymore. I'm not saying what she did was right. It wasn't. It was evil. But she didn't wake up that way. Just thought you should know." I sat with that voicemail for hours, played it back until the battery light blinked red, and still, I didn't know what to do with it. Was it supposed to comfort me? Excuse her? Explain murder as a symptom of invisibility? Because I had grieved Helen loudly, visibly, but I'd never stopped loving Elise. I'd shown up, paid bills, hosted holidays. Maybe I didn't say the words enough. Or maybe they got lost under the weight of loss. But I'd been there, and that had to count for something, didn't it? The next morning, I stood outside the county jail. I didn't go in to see her, I couldn't, but I stared at the entrance long enough for a guard to come outside and ask if I needed help. "No," I said, just remembering who I raised. I left a note with her attorney, just 5 words written in my own handwriting. "You don't get to win." I didn't sign it. That evening, I sat with Ethan on the porch swing. We watched fireflies flicker along the hedges like they used to when Helen was alive. He leaned his head on my shoulder and asked if we could build a treehouse that fall. I said yes before he even finished the sentence because that's what we were doing now, building something new from what had been burned down. And as we sat there in the cooling twilight, I realized something important. I wasn't just surviving. I was reclaiming my life. Grief is strange when it arrives late, after the police, after the cameras, after the courtroom, after you've been told you're lucky to be alive. It shows up in quiet places. I found mine in the laundry room. I had opened the dryer to fold Ethan's clothes when I caught the scent of his shampoo, something citrusy and young, and it hit me like a freight train. This boy didn't ask for any of this. His childhood had been detonated in one evening. He would never think of his mother the same way again. And I, well, I was left trying to patch together a family with duct tape and memory. I sank to the floor right there beside the dryer and let myself cry for the first time since Elise's arrest. Not the silent, stoic tears I'd been shedding behind closed doors, but an open, broken kind of weeping. I cried for Helen, who wasn't here to see the ruin. I cried for Elise, for who she'd been before greed hollowed her out. But mostly I cried for Ethan because I didn't know how to make this world feel safe again for him. Julia found me there, crouched on the floor holding a towel like it was a lifeline. She didn't say a word. She just sat down beside me and placed her hand on my back. That's the thing about Julia, she knew when not to talk, when the silence was the only language that made sense. Eventually, I spoke. What if I can't fix this? You can't, she said gently. But you can show him how to live with it. That's what matters now. The fallout was relentless. News crews stopped camping outside our street, but the damage lingered like smoke after a fire. Neighbors dropped off casseroles they didn't expect us to eat, some avoided eye contact altogether, unsure how to speak to the man whose daughter had tried to poison him. I couldn't blame them. Hell, I still didn't know how to speak to myself some mornings. Then came the calls. The worst ones weren't from strangers or media, they were from family, cousins who demanded to know what Elise's sentence would be, an uncle who asked if I was sure the food was meant for me, as if there was some universe where her guilt was more tolerable if the victim had been someone else. One cousin, Tina, even suggested that I drop the charges for the sake of the family name. I nearly threw the phone through the wall.